Welcome to All Workforce Matters. I'm Teresa Miele, Chair of the Rutland Region Workforce Investment Board. We're going to be talking about women in management, and with me I have Lindel James, who is an executive certified coach and for both coaching and training.
Correct.
And what company do you work with?
Well, I own my own company, the Center for Leadership Skills, located in Montpelier.
And you're collaborating on this. You're providing a series of workshops for women in management that is going to be coming right up.
Yeah, I'm through Vermont Tech.
That's right. So if we could segue over to our brochure, I just want to show our viewing audience, because there are several in the series that you're going to be offering. It's going to be located at Castleton Downtown, which is right on 67 Merchants Row. There are 4 workshops that are going to be provided.
Right.
The first coming up March 30th, then April 13th, the 27th of April, and May 11th. And they're going to be held from 8:30 in the morning to 12:30 in the afternoon with light refreshments. It's always good to have snacks. In addition to that, there is a cost of $75, but I'm understanding that there are scholarships available, and folks can go to events.vtc.edu/CEWD to sign up, or they can call Beth Demers at 802-879-2380. So there are a lot of different ways to get involved with the program, and I imagine we're going to want to really get promoting the registration for this, and it will fill up fairly quickly, I think.
Right, it's a great opportunity, Teresa, because this is actually coming with some grant money. So the price is absolutely right. They'd never get something like this at this price, and with scholarships available, it seems like something people would want to do.
It does. And the other thing I wanted to mention as well is that it is a partnership not only with VTC, but also with Castleton University, the Rutland Young Professionals, and the Rutland Region Workforce Investment Board.
Right.
So a lot of connectivity going on in Rutland County, which is fantastic. So women in management, grasp your leadership edge. Why is this an important topic? Why does it matter?
Well, it's important to me, and I think it's important to a lot of women who just need that little bit of a move to help them build their confidence so that they can take their leadership to the next level. I know a lot has been said, both politically and through books and different literature, that there are issues with women in management. I'm not going to get into that. This is not a political course. This is a course really to help people grasp that leadership edge and build the confidence from within. Get rid of those little voices in their heads that are keeping them back, and maybe change some behaviors that might be going on to take them to the next level.
Now, when we were talking a little bit earlier, you were saying that in the first session, that was really going to be more of the focus. Can you describe a little bit more or give some examples, perhaps, of that self-doubt, excuse me, that women sometimes have, and men to some degree, but we tend to be focusing on women for the moment, that folks have that prevents them from having that confidence to move forward?
Sure. You know, you've probably experienced it yourself. I know I have. We all hear those little voices. I'm too young. I'm too old. I don't have enough degrees. I don't have this. I wasn't brought up that way. I couldn't speak out like you do. I'm more of an introvert. These are just voices that hold you back. They're perceptions that are keeping you in a place that perhaps you don't want to continue to be in the rest of your career. So in the first session of these workshops, we're going to investigate those for you personally. It's not psychotherapy. It really is taking a look at what's going on for you personally and what's been holding you back, and we'll create some habits. We'll create some changes that you can work on. And with these classes, there'll be accountability from one class to the next. So it's just not walking in the door, listening to somebody talk to you about what could be or what you might do. You're really going to be engaged, and you're going to be expected to come back with some results.
So what you're saying is you don't have a magic wand or any fairy dust that you're going to sprinkle on the participants and then suddenly they're going to have a completely different story about themselves.
I wish I did. I'd be using it on me. But no, I don't. We have to do the work ourselves. But what I do have is years of experience. And, I've been in the places that many of them probably are. And maybe I still have some limiting perceptions myself. We all carry stuff with us. So really, this first session is to get rid of that. At least to walk away with one change. I'm not expecting that they're going to change their whole life in one course. But if you can walk away with one change from each one of these sessions that's going to have a positive impact on how you lead or you will lead in the future, it can be life-changing for you.
When you talk about it being life-changing, is there a particular story or experience that you had with a woman who's taken this workshop or done some work with you that has walked away and said, wow, I changed this one thing, or something that didn't really seem that important and it has transformed my life experience and my work experience?
Well, I can think of quite a few, actually.
That's wonderful.
Primarily, people come back to me and they say, I keep hearing your voice in my ear. One in particular, I was working with an executive who had an open door policy. And she thought that having an open door policy was just the right thing to do. Well, we all know if we've been managing any numbers of people, if the door is always open, there are no boundaries and people are always coming in. I just need a second, I just need a second. Well, I made her understand that it's okay to have boundaries, that because your door might be closed for you to work on a project doesn't mean you don't have an open door policy, but you have to have boundaries in your life. And we'll get into that in the third session when we talk about getting control of your time. So this is one that comes back to me quite frequently. Another is in helping a person build up their confidence. And this was a CEO of an organization of fairly good size. It wasn't a Fortune 500 company, but in Vermont, there's about 60 employees. And she had aspired for this position and got it. And then she said, oh my God, now what do I do? And all of a sudden, she knew she had the credentials for it, but the confidence, it's that little voice in your head that's like, do you really have what it takes to do this job? And so we worked a lot on the perceptions. And she's just a dynamo. So, there's a lot of those, and it
Fantastic.
feels really good to hear those.
Well, you mentioned the third session. Could you jump into the second session and talk a little bit more
Sure.
about what's going to happen there?
In the second session, we're going to talk about behaviors. And we all, like perceptions, we all might have just little behaviors. We'll take a look at what's working really well. What do you do that really works well for you? What engages people? And then what doesn't? What should you be doing more of? What should you be doing less of? And what should you be doing perhaps that you're not doing, or stop altogether? And it may be something as simple as not looking at people in the eye. And this is something, believe it or not, we hear quite frequently. Well, my boss doesn't look at me in the eye when she talks to me. And so we work on things like that to try to change things around. It may be you don't have a behavior of engaging with your employees or your staff frequently enough. Many times when you're in a management position, the higher your management position, the more frequently you're probably in meetings. And there might be a behavior that you could change by simply reminding yourself, and I have people actually put it on their calendars, take a walk around and say hi to your folks, appreciate that they're there. Ask a personal question. Thank them for something that they've done. So that'll be a big discussion around behaviors.
So as I'm hearing you talk about the first session and the second session, one of the things that I most appreciate is your passion for what you're doing and how you're bringing this in very manageable bites to women in particular. But I'm also thinking that just the thought of coming into that classroom can be really intimidating, perhaps. How do you help create safety so that women are sharing information with you and probably with one another so that you can then figure out what their style is and what behaviors are happening that are both positive and some that maybe need to be changed up or stopped?
Thanks for asking that question, because it's really an important one. The first thing we do is agree to confidentiality. It's really important if people are going to share their stories that we do create boundaries and the expectation of confidentiality. You can't expect people to open up and be sincere in what they're saying if you don't have that. And I'm very transparent with them in terms of where I came from. And I can remember when I started the corporate job that I worked with for almost my entire career, I started at a pretty low position and worked my way up the organization. I've got some experience in this from a practical sense. But people used to say to me, "You are the quietest person I know." And so I really had to find that voice for myself. So I'm just like them. And I want to share that with them. I want them to know that I'm not running for president or anything like that, but I have been in their shoes and I have worked my way up an organization, and they can do it too.
Now, you've said something a couple of times that I've picked up on, and that's the word boundaries. And that helping people understand that having boundaries is not necessarily a negative thing, but managing them and knowing what appropriate ones are can really help you advance yourself in management.
Absolutely. Boundaries are really important, and as a strong manager, as a strong leader, we have to have control of our time. And without control of our time, we can't be effective and we can't be efficient. So boundaries are good when it comes to controlling your time.
And I think I'm remembering correctly that you're going to explore more about boundaries in the third session?
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit more about that workshop?
Yeah, the third session will be all about getting control of your time. So how we do things, how we manage. We're probably not going, I'm not going to manage your calendar for you, but I'm going to teach you some skills on how to manage the calendar, how to not just manage your meetings, but how to manage the things that you actually have to do. We tend to do things that we write down. And instead of having like, oh yeah, I've got to get to this, I've got to get to that, we need to take control of all those other things. They might not be written on the calendar, but they have to be in there. There has to be a time element. Otherwise, you're looking at the potential of working 24/7 and you have no life. And then you fall out of balance and burnout happens. So time management is really an important aspect of leadership.
Now, one thing that I didn't ask previously, but I am wondering, is it important when you sign up for the workshops that you commit to all four, or can people come and go? How is that designed?
I think it's really important that you commit to all four, and that's the strategy for these 4 workshops, that it is a series of 4. They're not open enrollment. In other words, you couldn't do number 1 and then hop into number 2, because each one builds on the other. We call it staging. So it is important that there's a commitment there. There's a commitment not only to come to class and be there and be relevant in class, but also to be accountable, to come back to the next class with your homework done, so to speak.
Right.
It's not heavy homework, but there are things that I'm expecting that you will do.
So not a lot of volume of homework, but it does sound like very focused homework, which if you're challenging in changing your personal story,
right,
that it could be some pretty intense homework.
It's mostly in your mind homework, and it's mostly how you are thinking during that time between classes in terms of, for example, when we go from perceptions to behavior, that time between perceptions and behavior, you're really going to be thinking about that voice in your head. You're really going to be thinking about what holds you back. Actually, you're going to be thinking more about the habits that are going to change those voices. So that's the kind of homework that you're going to be doing. You're not going to be reading and writing. You're going to be actually doing.
Excellent. And the last workshop is about what?
The last workshop is about thinking comprehensively so that you can come up with strong, powerful solutions to problems. And I'm going to provide them with some tools that they can use to strategize their thinking. Often we just shoot from the hip, or we go to our intuition to come up with the right answers. And part of what I do in my own business is a lot of assessments, and I see this all the time. Many people rank on the low end of using real facts to come to decision making. Particularly women, we're really good at believing in our intuition. So intuition's good, and that needs to be part of it, but I'm going to provide them with tools that they can use to actually write out the thought process and come to a decision that's probably going to be much more effective with action plans and so forth to relate back to whatever that solution might be.
Could you give an example of of a tool or a strategy in that fourth workshop that?
Sure. Have you ever heard of the fishbone?
I have.
Okay.
I have used it.
So that's one strategy where you're actually going to have ideas. It's a schematic where you have your different ideas and potential solutions coming off what really looks like a fish, and each one takes you closer to the actual decision that you're going to be making that hopefully be the right one for the business.
So we were talking about women in business and some of the challenges that women experience, particularly moving up in terms of management, leadership types of roles. You've done a lot of work around this. You're an executive coach and you do a lot of training. What are some of the things that you notice in general, and perhaps some advice that you might have for young women or mothers and fathers of daughters that you think could help give folks a leg up on managing, leading?
Well, first I'll go back to the words of a very wise woman, my mother, who always said, you can do anything you put your mind to. And hopefully lots of our listeners' mothers have said that to them. And that pumps us up as we're young girls or young guys. But something happens, and it's probably somewhere in grammar school, high school, when somebody calls you a name or somebody says you can't do that, or it may be a coach, it may be another parent, it may be another kid, and I've seen this happen where just one slur can take your confidence away. So I guess I would really, for my daughters and my grandchildren, would tell the parents and the leaders that are working with these kids is to really keep working on on confidence building techniques. And it doesn't mean that you always have to be you're great. I don't really believe in everybody gets a trophy. I think that you have to work for what you get, and you've got to put your nose to the grindstone and you've got to work for it. But it's there if you want it. I don't believe that you have a mental disability that takes that away. You can be anything you want to do. You do have to work like crazy to get it. So put your nose to the grindstone and work.
I used to tell my children when there were challenges that these are character building moments.
They're character building moments. You're absolutely right. And as a parent, you can be very proud as your child grows, and they look back and they might say, "Thanks, Mom, I really appreciate that." But just keep giving them attaboys. Tell them when they're wrong. Don't abuse them when they're wrong, but coach them.
Sure.
I hate to keep using the word coach, but really, life and parenting is all about coaching and giving them the right tools. And tools don't have to cost anything. They can be the right words. They can be the right experiences from your own background that can help that confidence grow in a teenager, in a young child, and in an adult. And help them learn about perceptions yourself. Because I think that's the biggest thing. I think if you can get rid of those perceptions that are holding you back, those limiting beliefs is what I call them, get rid of those limiting beliefs, and the rest will come to you naturally.
I'd have to say that we're probably surprised by how often it is our own perception that limits what the possibilities
Absolutely,
are.
Teresa. It is. And if you take time to just think back at it, and I'd invite everybody to do that, just step back and think about yourself. And what have you said to yourself today that might be holding you back from the next great thing?
So I like the progression, the staging of the workshops, because it really seems to be very well thought out in terms of you really have to start with yourself first.
Exactly.
And figure out what's preventing yourself from moving forward, from taking that next step. And that very often we think that it's others preventing us from getting there when we really haven't checked out those assumptions.
You're exactly right. You're exactly right. And so I think if the people that attend this class, the first session, my ideal result will be to see the lights go on and have them say, okay, what can I do next so that I change? Give me some habits to work on so that I can change those perceptions.
We didn't touch on about how many people would create an ideal class size.
I think any more than 20 would be too many, because you really I need to spend time, individual time, with each person in the class as well. The class will be a little different than a lot of workshops that I think people have seen. A good part of it will be instructing and exercises and so forth, because we never just instruct. We're engaging the participants all the time. But there'll also be a good part of them doing some peer-to-peer coaching and developing their plan for the time that they will be away from class. So the class won't just end and they'll be like, oh, what am I supposed to do now? They'll really have some time to work on the next steps for themselves.
So it sounds like there's going to be a really nice progression, not only from class to class, but also walking away with some really solid strategies for implementing them either in your personal life and or in the workplace.
Absolutely, absolutely, and I think that should be the goal of any class. That you want to walk away with, like I said at the beginning, if they can walk away from each class with one meaningful change that's going to have an impact on their leadership. And leadership doesn't have to be in the office, as we well know. We have leadership in the community, and we have leadership as a parent. We have leadership as a soccer mom or a soccer dad. There's so many different roles that leadership plays. But I want them to walk away with just one new change that's going to have an impact on their success going forward.
So I really appreciate the fact that you're saying it's one new impact.
Right.
Now, thinking from the perspective of someone who perhaps hasn't had an opportunity to learn in this way before, am I getting the bang for my buck? I mean, why one? Why not 5? 1 doesn't seem like a lot.
Well, that's a good point. But people can't take an overload in a class. So my goal is always 1 to 3. Sometimes, and if you look at the brochure, you may see 5. Well, I have 5 points that I want to bring up to every student at every class. But not all of them are going to target the same one. So that's why I'm looking for each one to come up with one solid thing. They'll pick up some information, so they could maybe have a lighter bullet, 2, 3, 4, and 5, but I want you to have one solid thing.
Right. And I'm thinking that diversity in the classroom would be very, very important, so that you want people of all ages and economic backgrounds and different types of jobs, that this does not have to be a situation where it's a high-level position or an entry-level position. Am I correct in my
Right.
thinking
It
there?
works best. It will work best for people who are managing people, because we'll talk a lot about that. So if you're a supervisor or if you're a CEO, it can work for you. It could be the owner of a company. It could be a key employee, small business owners. So many of them out there that have never had any practical leadership experience. And, I've seen people in small businesses that are beginning to have staff, but they don't quite know how to interact with them. And they're a little bit afraid sometimes. And that, again, goes back to that little voice in their head. Well, if I say this, will they leave? Or am I strong enough to say this? Oh, she's younger than I am. Maybe she knows more. So it'll work for a lot of people, but I really think that if you are managing, even if it's one person, if you have the responsibility for one person, it'll work best for you.
That sounds great. What other things would you like to make sure we talk about? We have several minutes left, and want to make
Okay.
sure that if there are other topic areas, we get to cover them.
Right. I go back to your point on diversity again. It is very important that we have the young and the old and different types of businesses, because, as I said, we all learn from each other. But I want them also to understand that it's a safe place for them to be. The number one focus is on them coming out of it with at least one thing, and I want them to build their confidence. I want them to find their voice and be passionate about their leadership and know that, as we said, Mom said, you can do it.
I really like the idea that this is so transferable, that yes, the way into this leadership series can be through work in a managing kind of role or ownership role, but it also allows for a voice in the community, a voice at home, a voice in a variety of different ways, which can just strengthen you. And the more you practice what you have set out as a task, the better off you're going to be and the more you'll have to offer.
Exactly. You mentioned that you're the chair of the Workforce Investment Board, and we need more women in chairs of community positions. Many times we see people who are well qualified, but they might sit back and say, oh, well, I'm not the right person
I
for
could
that.
never do
I
that.
couldn't do that. I want to get rid of the I couldn't do that and say, I can do that,
Yes, and so success builds on success.
And success builds on success, and we support each other. Women need to support each other in a lot of different ways, and this is one that I hope I can support women in.
So given that you're going to be doing the series that we've been talking about, what happens after this? Where could women see themselves going once the workshops end? Are there other leadership opportunities, or we're not sure just yet?
There are definitely VTC offers a number of leadership workshops, leadership series. And this series that I have is also built to go on. I have a number of additional series. At this time, we were looking at the 4. But there's a lot more to come.
Excellent. I know the Workforce Investment Board has been really interested in providing collaboration for leadership series in the Rutland County, so there are a few available. So
that's great.
We have about a half a minute left. I know, where is the time gone, right?
Where's the time gone?
Is there anything that you wanted to say to sum anything up, or have we covered everything?
I think we've covered it all. It was nice driving to Rutland today. I haven't done that for a while. I used to be down here working with businesses in my past, so it'll be nice to be re-engaged. And I'm very excited that your organizations, and VTC, have collaborated to put this together. It's exciting.
It is exciting.
It's very exciting.
Well, welcome back to Rutland. We're glad that you came by for a visit, and glad you're going to be down here a little bit.
Thanks so much.
You're welcome. And with that, I'm going to thank our viewing audience for being with us. And remember, all workforce matters.